VVC to have like trading units going out at the Southern California Logistics Airport. That's got to fall right in line with looking ahead.
Well, Sterling, I'm going to be with our friends at Sterling Development here real soon, and they came up with the idea, and they came to the college and they partnered, Anita Tuckerman, Brian Parno, and Dougal Egan, and said, we have a building on out here, and we believe that this building offers some great opportunity and educational. And also then you had like Phil Cawthon and the San Bernardino County Workforce Development Group that really got behind it. I know that our supervisor's office has, encouraged it. But at the end of the day, let me tell you who wrote the check. The check was written by the college. Okay, and at our board meeting 2 months ago, I wanted to go on the record that it wasn't county dollars that was being used. It was dollars at the college that was being used, and a contribution by Sterling that was used through the Workforce Investment Board and through Fred Burke and Phil Cawthon and Sandy Harmson and those kind of people. And while I appreciate the push by Supervisor Lovingood, at the end of the day, I always go where the money came from because that's where the leadership came from. It really started under Dr. Our former president that we had, and Dr. Walden picked it up. So Roger Wagner came with the idea and said, we really need to reach out. So we've got a working relationship with General Atomics. We have a great working relationship with ComAv. And those are employers that have come to college and said, we need additional training. We know that Southern California Logistics Airport, we know that the entitlement that Sterling has at 62 million square feet, they built 5 million square feet. They built absolutely some of the finest buildings possible. They now have a brand new partner in Prologis, the largest industrial developer in the world with about 720 million square feet of space. It just made, one plus one equals three. That's what my friend Scott Kaplan at CBRE used to tell me. So it's been great. You bring the county together, you bring Sterling together as a building developer, and then you bring the college. And then I understand now that on the half side of the building, Eric Schmidt with the Squadron will be moving in the other side of the building, and apparently has an option to buy the building so he could ultimately be the landlord for VVC. So it'd be a win-win, I think, for everybody involved.
Joe, explain your affection for and support for the Mojave River Valley identification of the high desert. And in fact, isn't it bothersome that the county is not behind this?
Well, I'll tell you what's bothersome. I moved up here on Friday, May 13th of 1988, and about that time, and Terry, it was 2:45 in the afternoon when the truck pulled in the driveway from Santa Barbara, and it left at 3. It actually made it back by 6 o'clock because I got my deposit back. And it made it back to the gas station, the Chevron gas station on Stork Avenue.
Are you superstitious, Joe?
No, candidly, I moved here on that day because I didn't want it to work out. So I almost sabotaged it. And but at the end of the day, I met Deb and I met a lot of great people, and we've had a pretty good run.
But you do believe there's a point and purpose for everything under a grand design.
I believe that there's a reason that I picked the high desert or the Mojave River Valley to move to. When I first came here, you had people like Mary Scarpa and Gerda Feldman and Tom Pinard and Mike Rothschild and Dick Pearson. I mean, people like that. I mean, Dick is, long past and just a great guy. Mary Scarpa, her picture sits in my foyer of our, when you walk in our reception room. And they all felt that we were not getting the right representation. So why don't we create our own county? I think that their thought process was 30 years too early. But do I give them credit? I mean, they hunkered down. I mean, they did everything they could. But at the end of the day, we had, I think, 15% of the population in the county, and 85% of the population was down below. So when it came to a vote, the people down below, we call them down below, squashed it and said, no, you're not going to split off. I think that the day will come, but we need to grow here, but we need to grow with good educational jobs. We need to have some money behind it. Right after I came here, I met people like Robert Lovingood and Brad Orchard and Tom Burke and all kinds of people. One of the economic councils that we formed was called Mr. Ed, Mojave River Valley Economic Development Council. We called it Mr. Ed C because it was kind of cute. For those of you that are my age, you'll remember what Mr. Ed was. If you're watching this and you're younger, there's a horse. What the horse of the horse of the course of course or whatever. So the Mojave River is one of the only 2 rivers in the continental United States that flows in the opposite direction. Half this flows underneath the ground. You look at the expansive views of the Mojave River Valley. My friend Mr. Hasty that passed away a couple of years ago that had the Boulder Creek Ranch. He is a big proponent. There are a lot of people that want to see a change up here, but we don't want to change it tomorrow. It's really a dialogue. So with the help of John O'Haney, the master plan developer of Tapestry, with Randy Terrell, with Passantino Anderson, the help of Katrina Sieverts, Bo Gurley with Sheer Graham Carr with NAI Capital. I'm just looking around the room. We believe that now's the time to reintroduce the name Mojave River Valley out there. We've had serious conversations with the city of Hesperia. We hope to see a city council resolution in the near future that would say, all we are is supporting the name. We're not asking anybody to change their views. We've had serious meetings with the city of Adelanto, with the mayor and the city, with the mayor and Stefania Evans. She was mayor pro tem at the time. There's been meetings with John O'Haney, and has met, and Randy with Orlando Acevedo, and I believe Doug Robertson at the town of Apple Valley, and I think most of the council members, not all of them, I think are supportive. They came to a meet and greet that we had about 4 months ago. City of Victor, we were saying a great conversation with Keith Metzer and with Sophie Smith, and then we know that there's a reluctancy there. I mean, Victorville's really the oldest city. Victorville's not the oldest city. Barstow's the oldest city, but Victorville's looked at in a very powerful way. We just had a great meeting with Nikki Salas out at the city of Barstow with John and Randy, and hope to make a presentation to their council soon. Hopefully we'll make a presentation to the town of Apple Valley. So it's something that's going to move along, but is it something I think needs to be done? Yes. Is it one of those issues that we can agree respectfully with civility to say, okay, you like the words Victor Valley. That's great. I like the words Victor Valley too. I like the, Mark Creffield and the Victorville Chamber have a marketing dialogue, not a marketing, but a slogan. I love the high desert. I love the high desert too. But there's 3 high deserts. You have the high desert in the Antelope Valley, that they call the Antelope Valley. You have the high desert here, which part of it is the Victor Valley. You have the high desert over Morongo. And you also remember that I was always big, and I was one of the founders of RETA, the High Desert Regional Economic Development Authority, that Barstow is one of our partners. And everything we do in our region includes Barstow. And there's a demarcation line at Hodge Road out there that you feel when you go north, you feel when you go south. There's people in Barstow that have had some challenges with issues here. They go way back. I mean, long time. I mean, every time I think of the rivalries, I think of the rivalries between Terry Caldwell playing football in 1956, which happened to be the year I was born, against Felix Diaz and Oro Grande in Victorville. So I think it's an exciting time. Terry, the one thing that I hope that everybody does is allows the dialogue to move forward for the Mojave River Valley. And hopefully the valley will come to a consensus. 40 years ago, I don't think there was a consensus to call Riverside and San Bernardino the Inland Empire. I don't think there was a consensus by anybody down in the Venice area to call that Silicon Beach. But as Eric Schmidt always reminds us, he has 2 sons down there. The young millennials and engineers said, we're going to take the Venice area and call it Silicon Beach. Look at Silicon Valley. So let's allow the dialogue. Let's have a good dialogue. In the many early years I was here, we always had great dialogues, whether it be with the High Desert Construction Industries Association, and then it was called the Victor Valley Association of Realtors, and there were always good dialogues, and there was some, we kind of fought. We fought them amongst ourselves. You remember Valley Bucks? We did Valley Bucks with Jim Busby and and Mr. Williams from Jack Williams. So I think it's something that will hopefully grow. We are changing all of our letterhead to reflect, that the Bradco companies is operating within the Mojave River Valley, and I hope that other people support. I'll tell you a secret. One of the questions on the survey asked the question. I won't tell you what I've seen the answer at, but there is a resounding number of people that have a strong opinion about the name of the Mojave River Valley at this point. So I think it tells the group, what they need to look at in the future.
Yeah.
So.
You have obviously a member of the Victor Valley College Board of Trustees. Why have you always emphasized the importance of education?
Believe it or not, when I came here in '88, I was not considered political, although I went to my first Young Republicans meeting shortly thereafter. And about 2 years after, cut my first deal, and it was actually cut with Dr. Ed Gould on the 10th hole at Spring Valley Lake on a Saturday morning on a par 5. And I remember it well like yesterday. And it had to do with economic development, and it had to do with education being the middle of the spoke. So back in those days, we had just incorporated Apple Valley and Hesperia. And we had a fair amount of growth, but we also had the announcement of the closure of George Air Force Base. So the Valley was fighting about the control of the base and where we're going to go. And I've always looked at the college, the educational, quotient, as a spoke. I remember this was like it was yesterday. In April of 2011, so I was appointed. I beat out 24 people for my position on February 1st of 2011. Not everybody was real happy that I got it. There were some people, I think some of the constituency groups were a little concerned because I'm a fiscal conservative, and they had the concerns. And it's all worked out. And I think we got a great relationship after 8 years. But in April, I went to a breakfast with Mike Page down in Redlands, and the group's called something like First Tuesday or whatever, and they meet, and they've been there forever, and it's a bunch of Inland Empire leaders that meet once a week, and they're very political, and they look at major issues. Dr. Husing happened to walk in that day. Senator Brady was there that day. And John stood up and said, I'm giving a speech, I believe it was May 11th, so somebody go take a look, for the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. It was his annual speech. And Dr. Husing said, I've given 4,000 speeches. My speech this year will deal with education. It will deal in the fact that literally only 10% of residents within the Inland Empire have a college degree. And unless we make education the number one issue, the Inland Empire will ultimately fail. And I remember going, wow. I came back, and Dr. O'Hearn was our president superintendent. And I know Chris didn't like going down to Ontario for lunch. And I didn't browbeat him, but I probably, some people say I can intimidate. I probably wore him out, and he ultimately went down to lunch. The room was packed with 400 leaders within the Inland Empire. And John went through very clearly how important education is. Terry, we do not have an educated workforce up here. And I think we have to come to grips with this. We've done a great job at the college. Dr. Wagner put us on the right course. Dr. Wallen's taken us to the next level. We have great working relationships with our constituency groups. Everybody is now rowing together. We just graduated our largest class, 1,300. Now, if you did with duplicate degrees, we had 1,700. Incredible. But I'm going to tell you this, and people don't like hearing this, like a dirty little secret. 98% of those people don't stay here. They want to leave here. Why? Because they don't see the lifestyle here. They don't see where they can get a job here. Well, when you sit down and you talk to Craig Garrett over at ComAv, who has 250 employees out at that base, and they're very much involved in the airplane business, and his average pay is $90,000. He said, Joe, I can't get people to come to work here for two reasons. One, I can't find that skilled. And he said, when they come up here, they don't want to live here. So he has plenty of people that drive up here every day. There's 30,000 people that drive up that pass, but they want to live down Ranch Cucamonga. I know that Eric Schmidt just hired, I think, an HR person, okay, that said, I'm going to come to work for you. He told me last week what he's going to pay him. That person's going to operate out of Sacramento because they don't want to come down here. So the survey has a tie to education. The college has a tie to that education. And at the end of the day, we're going to hopefully from the survey figure out what has gone wrong here. And, as I say, put on your big boy pants. Okay, I don't say it from a sexist standpoint. We need to deal with why we are where we are today. And if we don't, it's not going to improve. And then we're going to have people 10 years from now saying, why didn't we do something? Well, it was Joe's idea or it was Terry's idea. Get over whose idea it is. We need to do this. We need to do it ourselves.
What are some of the companies you've brought into the Mojave River Valley region, the Victor Valley?
Well, our staff, Terry, over a course of years, and we had some really good years and we've had some fairly slow years, we believe that based on some old tracking numbers that we had, that we've been responsible for about 10,000 jobs in the 31 years I've been here, which I'm very pleased about. It's not all about making a commission. Okay. A year ago, we started taking a look for Apex Rentals. Randy Briggs, his sons Cody, um, their partner Richard Briggs, to take a look at expanding in the city of Victorville. We found a couple sites, and the first thing that we did was we went over and talked to the city. Sat down with Scott Webb and said, Scott, Scott is what I call the director of planning. He's not officially, they have another deal, but he works really close with him and Sophie Smith and Keith Metzer, and they really, I think, have attempted to change the tone of how they do business, and they become a lot more business friendly. I will email Scott and say, here's a site for a couple clients, and what do you think? We brought the Lease family over to meet with the city, sat down in the conference room and said, and here's a building. We had a great seller in Jeff Aguirre. The building was right there on Lorraine Drive and Valley Center. Building had been owned, I think, at one time by the city years ago. But long story short, with the city's help, we were able to facilitate that deal. There were some improvements that had to be done. The tenant couldn't, the buyer couldn't afford them right up front. So the city worked out a deal where they had a period of time. The next one was a company called Shark Recycling that Paul Casillo in our office worked with Don Brown with Lee and Associates. And they ended up taking a fairly substantial building that used to be the old storage building that the Whites had down on the east side of Hesperia Road between Seneca and Mojave. It sits up there on top. It's about a 5-acre site. And they do glass recycling. So they take windshields and things like that. And they worked on it for a long period of time. They went through the arduous process of the approvals with the city. And then there were some other things that happened. So they were able to come on in. And the last one that we recently did, I was personally really proud. One of the big names up here in a quality family, is the Coolies. I mean, you just can't think of a name better than the Coolies. And we've had the opportunity of doing work with Don Cooley years ago when he owned Mojave Equipment. Unfortunately, his health has failed, and he's now living back in Colorado. But he had a 51-acre property. It's right next to Hollander Burger, right there on the side of the hill, and worked very closely with his wife Terry. She was incredible to work with. And Paul had a client. Paul Casillo in our office had a client that builds concrete panels for buildings. So we were able to strike a deal with Terry's help. I think where the challenge was that property was not on the side of the hill, but it had a lot of dirt work. And I was able to convince her, although she wasn't probably happy about it, that's probably what challenges some people to hire us. I look at things more as a developer, and I say, okay, why don't we spend a little bit of money in order to get you that money? She did. Reluctantly, she did. She hired Joe Miller with J.E. Miller out there in Apple Valley, knocked out of the park, did a great job. And in doing so, we were able to sit down with the tenant, with the buyer. So the buyer bought it, and then they've got a relationship with the tenant to build these panels. But again, we brought in the city of Victorville. So we brought in Brian Gingler, we brought in Scott Webb, and said, how do we do this? And we were at a point, at one point, where the road improvements out on D Street, just right next to Hollander Burger, were going to get so expensive the deal was going to die. So the city said, how can we do this without compromising safety? So again, I'm not the biggest lover of government. I personally want less government. I mean, I'd love to see 50% less, federal, state, county, city government. But there's a point when you have a great government, person in Scott Webb and Brian Gingler, who sat down with the clients and the engineer. We brought in Robert Martinez. We had Joseph Miller, and we figured out how to make a deal. So now that's the third company this year. So, one of the things that we pride ourselves are actually not only talking the talk, but walking the walk, and trying to promote the high desert region. We're working on a couple out in Barstow right now, refrigeration company. We're constantly working in Atlanta, and we've got a pretty nifty little development deal that we're working on. It's under contract with the city of Hesperia and one of the major medical groups up here to do something that you'll see from the freeway, and I think that everybody will be happy. So there's still some great things happening on up here.
What are some of the major challenges facing our region? And these are things that the survey is, I'm sure, going to emphasize and point out. But what do you see, what do you know are some of the major challenges facing our region that coalition with the private sector and government are going to have to solve.
Government's going to have to get their arms around this crime issue. There's no doubt. I recently spoke to our sheriff, John McMahon. I mean, he's a great sheriff. Deb and I were driving to Sedona, and I called him up and I said, John, what is a rule of thumb about the number of patrolmen or sheriffs to the number of citations or reports? And then he gave it to me. He said, Joe, this is not scientific. This is how we got to do it. I recently came across a file where Jim Cox, James L. Cox, our great councilman, who used to be the greatest city manager, I think, in the state, called a meeting at Victor Valley College to talk about a one police force for Apple Valley. I don't know if you remember this. Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Victorville. And I don't think that actually flew, but there was a discussion. The cities have got to come to grips with crime. We can blame 109, AB 109, and 57 and 49. You know what? You can point fingers all you want. At the end of the day, I can point fingers in here, or I have to make decisions. I either have to cut my expenses, okay? I have to reallocate my revenues, okay? I might have to let somebody go, okay? I think that at the end of the day, if we go through a slowdown, I think the cities are going to have a problem. I mean, how many people can you be obligated to on your payroll at the city while you have increasing crime? And the last time I checked, Terry, if people don't feel comfortable, they're not going to promote an area. If they're not going to promote an area, industry's not going to come on up here. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that industry is not going to move out to SCLA, where you've got Sterling's got, thousands of acres to develop. I mean, they're absolutely a premier company. But at the end of the day, senior leadership has to be convinced that they're safe. I think that the relationship with Prologis and Sterling, I think that based on conversations we've had with John O'Haney with Tapestry, and he's got a great friendship with Kim Steiner, they realize that we have perception issue, crime issue. We have an undereducated workforce. There's a way to deal with that. The Cajon Pass is really an issue. It's a bigger issue than people want to deal with. I think if people don't feel safe and secure, they're not going to invest. I do think that when the report comes out, and I remember literally a month ago talking to Hughes about his updated proposal, he said to me, quote unquote, Joe, I'm 78 years old, and I'm probably going to make a whole lot of people mad. I said, John, I'm 62, on my way to being 63. I've been making people mad all my life, and you know what? They're going to get over it. Because at the end of the day, Terry, you care about the high desert, the Mojave River Valley. I care about it. John O'Haney cares about it. Randall Lewis cares about it. A bunch of our sponsors care about it. They care enough to put their money where their mouth is. You talk about the medical industry that we've talked to that have said we are impacted at the hospitals. Every one of these hospitals is impacted, and they're not impacted by people that are showing up with little cut fingers. Mm-hmm. There are people coming in with shotgun wounds and overdosing on opioids and things like that. We have got to address this. I was not a good kid. And I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, and I ended up going to a military school in 7th and 8th grade. That military school is still there today. It's on Harbor Boulevard. It's on the west side of Harbor Boulevard, just north of Lincoln. It will be there 100 years from now. It was run by the Catholic nuns, and it was run by the Marines. And let me tell you, back in 1968, 1969, you didn't call your parents after you took a beating. And I mean, I'm telling you, a beating. And you know what? I'm a better person for it because one of the things that they taught me was that actions speak louder than words. And while we have, I think, a lot of political talk about we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of it, we can't keep kicking this issue down the road. It's our issue. The high desert of the Mojave River Valley owns it, and we have to do something about it. And if we don't, then I think you're going to see people get involved politically in office that you may not want to see.
Don't you think, though, we talk about expansion and people coming up to this area, you want residents to come up. You want more residents to this area from down below instead of, like you say, 98% of the people with the degrees from Victor Valley College, they leave the area.
Yep.
That a major focus and a concern is we need to create or bring back an environment, an atmosphere where people want to stay here, want to raise their family here, and crime is probably among the leading reasons that they don't want to be here.
Well, and it's one of the things that people don't want to talk about. The only way, if you have a family issue and you don't sit down and have that conversation, you're not going to get anywhere. If you're having a personal issue and you don't sit in the mirror, you're not going to deal with it. If you have a family issue, you don't seek consulting, you're not going to get a result. If you have an issue with your soul and you don't sit down and have that conversation with the good Lord, you're not going to get a result. The high desert of the Mojave River Valley is a great place to live, work, and play. I totally believe in it. I wouldn't be spending the ungodly amount of time that we have or the expense in doing what we're doing, where I know that it's helped us somewhat, but it's hurt us because some people don't want to see the results. Again, I really don't care. This is where we all live, work, and play. I mean, Tara, I've known you for 31 years. You've been passionate. When I first came up here in 88 and 89 and 90, people would drive 2,000. It would take $2,000 per mile for people to come up here and not buy in Fontana or Rialto. Okay, Rancho Cucamonga was really not an issue. Today, I think there's a little bit bigger delta that we call it. They had the same issue in the Antelope Valley. Remember, we built 34,000 homes on up here between 2000 and 2008. The market, we're only building 12% of those homes today. Why? It's not that we don't have land. It's not that the builders don't have a low base. It's not that our fees are fairly competitive. Now, I'm not going to say they're the most competitive, but they're fairly competitive. It's not that we don't have clean air, okay? It's not that you can't beat to Wrightwood in 45 minutes. It's not that you can't beat a Big Bear in an hour. It's not that you can't beat a Vegas in 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's not you can't beat the beach in 2 hours. We have some issues on up here that have impeded, and because of social media and phones and televisions, last week alone we were on the news twice for 2 shootings of our law enforcement people, and candidly, Mayor Garcia came out and was very clear. We can't accept this. No, we can't accept it. But more importantly, we need to do something about it. Press releases are great, saying that we're upset about something. But you know what? Until the Valley does something about this and stop blaming AB 109 and Prop 47, you can't keep blaming things. Which gets back to what got me in military school. My dad said I was always blaming people, and I did. I blamed all my friends every time I got in trouble. I got busted all the time. I mean, but I was always blaming people. And my dad said, stop blaming other people and take responsibility. So, the thing that people have heard me say a million times at the dais at VVC is we need to take accountability and responsibility for our actions. And this is our issue. This is an issue that the councils need to deal with. This is an issue that Dr. Husey warned us in a private meeting back on April 14th of 2014. And the town of Apple Valley, I've spoken about this with you before, and then people watching this, that our bishop, was on the council at the time. I believe he was mayor. He was running for the assembly. He knew how important it was. We had the mayors, the city managers, and the mayor pro tems. In that meeting, Dr. Husing came up. He gave me an hour coming up, an hour going on home, 3 hours here. And he told everybody on that day what would happen, and nothing really happened. And so that's where we are today, and that's what's prompted the survey.
You've not had an easy life, as you said. A childhood that some memories of it are not pleasant. But let's just go right directly to this question. When were you diagnosed with prostate cancer?
I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I believe it was in 2014. Deb and I had gone over to see Dr. Siva just to have our first treadmill test. I was at the time, I was probably 57 years old. It was time to do the treadmill test. I said, let's go do it together. Our treat was to go to Farmer Boys and have breakfast after we went through that enduring process. So we did. We did the fast. We did the whole thing. And there was a spike in my blood, my PSA. So my father was still alive at the time. He had passed in 2016. So I reached out to him and I said, Dad, is there anything I should know about my PSA? And he said to me, yeah, he had prostate cancer, and he was quiet about it. And he had gone to Cedar Sinai down in LA, and I was raised real close to Cedar Sinai. So it was easy to pick up the phone, call his doctor. Now, what is the probability, Terry? This is how small the world gets. What is the probability that Dr. Siva, I found this out later, that Dr. Siva had gone to medical school with the founder of Tower Urology, okay? And I then go to the founder's partner, Dr. Jacobson, who I've referred, probably 15 times down there. So, we went through and did the biopsy. I was at Spring Valley Lake hosting a lunch when I got the call from the doctor, and he called me on his cell. And I remember walking outside and standing up against the glass, looking at the practice screen at Spring Valley Lake, and we had that man-to-man conversation about what is life going to look like in the future. He said to me, he said, Joe, if you do what I tell you, life is going to be fine. And you know what? I listened to what he said. I followed him. We went through. I had the prostate taken out. I wasn't down, but literally a couple hours I felt. I had to operate out of the house for about a week. Our office did a great job. Everybody stepped up. Our friends stepped up, and life is good. And I would just tell any man to check your blood all the time. It's a pretty serious issue.
How has Alzheimer's impacted you and your family?
Well, my dad had dementia and Alzheimer's. My mom has the early stage of dementia, and I can see it. I'm really proud of what my parents did. I'm real proud of what my mom has done. My mom did a lot of great things. She was the president of Polygrove. She was the president of Stanford Women's Guild. She was involved in the Philharmonic down in L.A. She was involved in probably raising money to help build the Amundsen Theater. Her two biggest givers, I mean, her two people to go to. Like in high desert, when people need money, who do they call? They call Dr. Prim Reddy. Then they call Dr. Prim Reddy. Then they call Dr. Prim Reddy. Well, my mom's two favorite people that she went to were Walter O'Malley, the owner at the time of the LA Dodgers, and a guy by the name of Joe, the founder of Trader Joe's. And I mean, if I called her on up this morning and I went down and saw her, if you came down and did an interview, she would tell you of all the great things she did. You know how much she charged? Not a dime. She was always involved with philanthropic issues. She trained students for the national piano contest. A little side note: she taught Tina Turner how to play a piano. So my brothers were in high school. I think I was up here, and my mom got a call one day, because it was all by referral. She never advertised. I mean, there was no Facebook or ads. And my mom got a call one day from a lady by the name of Tina Turner. And Tina said, Miss Brady, my name's Tina Turner. And my mom, you'd have to know her. She's kind of like I am. She said, and who are you? And Tina Turner said, I'm Tina Turner. And my mom said, well, boom. And she lived at the time, she lived down, I think, in Encino. And after they figured out, so my mom still did not know when she got off the phone until my brothers came home from school. And when they found out, they said, wow, so they wanted to go on out there. And I think they did. And she taught Tina Turner how to play the piano. And my mom still practices today. She's got a gorgeous Steinway at home, and she lives in Rancho Mirage. She still acts, still plays bridge. But I've been able to see what dementia does. I've seen what Alzheimer's did to my father. The doctor who diagnosed my father was from Cedars-Sinai. He called me, and we had that conversation. It was for 11 minutes. I was standing on our lot in Prescott, Arizona, when he said to me, this is the bottom line. And there was no sugarcoating it. I will tell you a story, because I know that you love athletics like I do. My dad and I had a pretty challenging relationship. I was the first 5 boys, and I was always in trouble. But he did give me some great opportunities. He let me go away to high school back in Colorado, where I learned a lot of great things, probably at a very young age, that a lot of kids probably wish that they had done. I think I learned a lot. But as we went through this progression, and Deb and I would drive down to West LA and see him pretty regularly, there was a Sunday that we went down that I kind of felt helpless. I thought, I'm the oldest of 5 boys. My brothers and I have had, some challenges with our parents through the years. They were pretty strict. And we were driving down Melrose Avenue, and we were just about ready to hit the 101 freeway. And I said, Deb, I got the idea. And she goes, what's that? And I said, I'm going to call one of our clients, Vince Ferragamo, who Vince actually owns a building here in Victorville that very few people know. It's on Bear Valley Road, down near. It's got a pizza place in front of it. And, Vince is a former quarterback of the LA Rams, went to the Super Bowl before this last group, before golf did last year. So I called him, he asked the phone right away, and he goes, what's up? And I said, hey, could you do me a favor? So my dad was a huge Rams fan. He had tickets from the day the Rams moved in till the day they moved to Anaheim. We were around the O'Malleys all the time in baseball, and Jack Kent Cook at the Forum. My dad was really big into sports. The UCLA basketball, I saw the entire dynasty. So Vince said, when do you want me to come on over? And I said, well, let me work on my schedule, which I did. And Vince worked around my schedule. Deb and I drove down there. He said, I'll show up at 2:30 on a certain day. And lo and behold, we pulled into my dad's place and who was sitting there in the parking lot but Vince. And they came up and they talked for an hour. But let me tell you what I saw with dementia. My dad didn't know that this was going to happen. So what happened was my parents had gone through a long and very famous protracted divorce. My dad had married another lady by the name of Lucia Hildago Brady. And she had a daughter, and her daughter was from South America. And Deb and I happened to be in Orange County one weekend looking at retail centers for our Barstow project. And we were standing down at the Marriott, and I got a phone call at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And my stepsister said, Joe, there's a problem. I think today's going to be the last day. And so I said, Deb, let's pack up the stuff, driving to LA. Now, Terry, this is on a Sunday. Vince Ferragamo was scheduled to be there Tuesday, but I never told my dad that. It was a surprise. So we drove into LA. Not one time did I ever walk into his master bedroom that he did not know me, not only by my name, but by my nickname. And not only did he not ever not know Deb, he always remembered Deb. So that's a weird thing about dementia and Alzheimer's, especially when you come to the long term and in short term. So I walked in, and the whole time I'm thinking, what am I saying to my dad? I'm the oldest of 5 boys, and he was tough. So I walked in, and he was tired, but he didn't look like he was going to pass away that moment. And so I stood at the end of his bed, and I said, Dad, I need you to do me a favor. I said, I got a surprise for you, but it's not going to be here till Tuesday. And as soon as I said that Vince Ferragamo would be there, he sat up, he pointed his finger like I do, okay? He said, Cal Berkeley, went to Nebraska, played for the Rams, did this, at Wilmington High School. He went through the whole thing. And I stood there. Terry, because of what the doctor had told me of what impact that dementia and Alzheimer's had on his brain, so they can actually test. They know the capacity your brain has. I stood there, my jaw dropped. I had to be really strong, and I said, Dad, can you do me a favor? Can you hang on until, I'm saying to my dad, can you hang on until Tuesday? I can't get Vince on over. I mean, I was asking for a favor. So I left the room. My dad seemed fine. He apparently never went to sleep after that until Vince Ferragamo showed up that Tuesday, which was weird. And, he loved his ice cream and he loved to eat. And so we got there and we went through the whole thing, and they had pictures taken. And God bless Steve Hunt, our friend. He had a nice article written about my dad. But I'll tell you, it's an ugly disease. I do a lot of reading. I get 60 publications a month. I get 4 newspapers a day. I can tell you this, that probably the number one thing outside of homelessness and the garbage we see about politics and who's running for this and who hates Trump today or whatever, the thing I probably see the most of is about dementia and Alzheimer's. And it's something I think I think that people should be scared about. Deb and I don't have any kids. So we constantly think, okay, you're doing this for what reason? But could you get to a certain point where somebody could take advantage of you, get a hold of your bank accounts or whatever? So it's something that I've learned. I constantly talk to my mom. She calls me whenever. You'll notice the phone's sitting right here. If I'm in the middle of a meeting and she calls, I'll call. Just recently we did notice that she called me 2 days in a row, almost at the same time. We had the same conversation. But they're a fresh conversation, but they're the same conversation. So I would just tell people, be very sensitive, show patience, hopefully have civility with people that have it. So
did your mom teach you to play piano?
When I went to military school, okay, so let me tell you how military school worked. You never sat around. You were either doing push-ups, you were out working out, you were playing soccer. I hated soccer. So I tried to get a piano lesson there. I thought, well, I should be an advantage. I went to school with John Mills, the Mills brothers. I went with Senior's son. We were in A company together. I was a sergeant of the guard. I tried it, and let me tell you this: I failed, and I failed big time. My brother. So there's Mark is my next brother, and Doug, and then John and Todd both live now in Chicago. Todd played for Loyola football, and 35 years ago was on the number 3 ranked football team in the country by USA Today, and had a great career. He played for Loyola High School, and Todd got the gene. So he got the gene. He has a gorgeous Steinway in his house in Chicago that we had shipped back there, and he can play, and he can play incredibly well. And if Todd ever got out of the financial services business, he could probably become a concert pianist. And it's great to hear. It's great to be around my mom and to see her play. And I hope that she can do it for as long as she can. We've talked about, does she want to move from where she lives? And I've said to her, if you move out of this house, you can't take that big old piano with you. So it becomes an issue.
So your nickname was not Piano Man Joe.
No. Someday I'll tell you.
But you have the love of music. You enjoy going to concerts.
Kind of addicted to it. I think that Deb and I figured out that some of the people that we like to see are no longer be around. And I think that, after Tom Petty died, in the last couple of years, and that was quick. We're at a place where you can go to Vegas pretty quick. Last year we've seen some great players. We've seen Bob Seger, just saw the Rolling Stones, just saw Elton John and probably 38 Special, Marshall Tucker, the Outlaws. The Stones were great. Mick Jagger, just incredible, the amount of energy he had. We've seen Peter Frampton recently. Peter's tours are over. So what we have found is, Peter Frampton last year, towards the end, we saw him down in Coachella. He has some kind of a physical disease, so he's out. Seeger is done. Supposedly the Rolling Stones, this was the last deal. We were going to see him at the Rose Bowl. We ended up seeing him just a couple weeks ago down at Glendale, Arizona, where they played the Super Bowl, where the Cardinals play, and they were incredible. And I just heard yesterday that this is not their last tour, and I'm a little bummed because I wrote that check that Deb and I were negotiating. She says, I don't want to spend that kind of money on it. I thought, well, we can't take it with us anyway, so. But no, we're Elton John was just very recently and incredible down in Anaheim and at the LA Fairgrounds. The 38 Special I've always liked, and the Marshall Tucker Band. The Outlaws had a big song I always liked. So we're trying to do more. She wants to see Aerosmith, and I wanted to do that real soon, but she said, Joe, you can't keep running 90 hours a week and go down these concerts and stay up until 11 o'clock at night and feel good. Yeah. And I'll tell you this, the crowds are more our age, and everybody gets along, and everybody's nice, and you don't have to worry about jerks, and yeah. So yeah, I'm going to see as many as I can. I like to see the Moody Blues and the Who, and love REO Speedwagon. Journey is one of my favorite, the Hooters. Crosby, Stills, Nash. I like seeing Neil Young. So we've actually, Deb went through and looked at all the videos we've got at home, because we like to watch a lot of concerts at home. We got a pretty nice system. And so now we've kind of cross-checked and said, okay, who's going to be up pretty soon? Because it gets to a point that once these people are gone, they're gone. And I don't want to make that mistake.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If you have time, we'll do one more.
Yes, I'll yeah. So.
Okay. Some of the entities that you are passionate about and that you've been involved with, Victor Valley College, with of course with your business, but also Spring Valley Lake. And they've got an important election coming on, and it's not that too far down the road.
Well, they have a potential election that hasn't been called yet, and at one time, yeah, we were. So, I moved in 1988, and Deb and I got together in '88 and started living together, and we couldn't afford to buy the house until 1999, and then we couldn't afford to fix it up until probably like 2003, when we just threw an ungodly amount of money at it. And then, but it was in 2000, as I remember, that there was a Sherman Rosant was involved, and Mr. LeBeau was involved, and they were homeowners that were constantly suing. Richard LeBeau more so than Sherman. Were continually suing the board of directors. I just bought. I was younger, didn't have a lot of brains, and I decided to kind of take Richard on by myself. And then my friend, at the time, Jim Carr, we sat down and we formed what was called Spring Valley Lake Concerned Property Owners, SVLCPO. And eventually, over a period of time, the idea was to raise money to get good candidates on the board that had, fiscal, that thought the same way we did from a fiscal standpoint and wanted to see Spring Valley Lake grow. So Spring Valley Lake is a project area well over 2,000 acres, created by Boise Cascade back in 1969, the largest grading project ever done in the Victor Valley at the time, the Mojave River Valley. 4,215 lots today. So they had less accessible lots back then, and the college is a part of it. We're now 50 years old, and so there's been some discussion by a group of, and I'd call them concerned property owners. So while I may not agree, I respect the fact that there's a conversation. So in the last 2 years, Rory Shannon and other people within Spring Valley Lake have formed a committee that are proponents for a proposed CSD. I think where people get confused and they say, well, why, Brady, are you Johnny come lately and you're opposed to this? Let me remind those that don't know. We have in our files here our correspondence in 2008 and 2009, and our conversations with Charlie Johnson in 2009 and Kimberly Cox. So Charlie was with the Phelan Pinion Hills CSD that was created. And that was created at the time very, very smartly by Bill Postmus, who was running for supervisor, convincing the people, the electorate out in Phelan Pinion Hills to pull away from the county. Anything he had to do with the county, pull away. He was smart. He picked up a lot of votes. He got a lot of support. They were able to form their own CSD. They cover a massive amount of area, and they have a lot of customers. They have about 6,500 customers. And Don Bart's their general manager, is a great friend. And I know most of the members of their board. Nothing bad to say about them. But I'd gone to Charlie early on and said, Charlie, you've thought about this. What do you think? And all of a sudden, we didn't have any more conversations. I then had conversations with Kimberly Cox. Just recently found my letter to her where there was going to be a meeting that she was going to host out in Silver Lakes, because she's the executive director of the Helendale CSD, which takes kind of similar. They have an area around it, but it's a lot bigger area than Spring Valley Lake. And I think that their issues, same as Phelan, are very different than what ours is. So they didn't have the CSA 64 like we do. So CSA 64 is located right down on Industrial Boulevard from us. Was run under special districts by a guy who had a long-term amount of respect for Jeff Rigney, who retired about a year ago. Steve Samaras runs it now. The interim director is Luther Snokes out of the county. He works in the CEO's office. So about 2 years ago, I guess that Rory Shannon and a few, Bo Gurley and Gary Abbott and the Verhagens and some other people got together and said, we want to have independence from CSA 64, and we believe that we can do better, and we believe that their water rates, that we can do better, and we believe that we can bring trash in and we can save money, and we can beat sewer rates and all that. Well, Terry, I'll tell you, and I'm putting together kind of a written overview that I'll make available to you and to others probably sometime in probably early November. Because I actually have a regular job. I have a day job, and I have some other responsibilities. But it became very clear. So I've looked at the report that Mr. Shannon prepared for LAFCO, which is Local Agency Formation Commission. Sam is the executive director. I've gone to one of their meetings down there. I read it front and back. I have probably 7 or 8 pages of written questions and comments that I will give to Mr. Shannon at the appropriate time, and Mr. Steve Garcia, who's really the committee president of this. And what it in essence says is I can't find anything compelling within this report. So it'd be kind of like being in a jury. Okay, you're either guilty or you're not. And I can't seem to find that compelling reason that you're guilty or you're not guilty. The only thing I can see is that they want to make a change. And I understand making a change. My second boss, Marvin Trevelyan, would make us make a change because change was good. But CSA 64 has not failed us. The rates of CSA 64 are set by the Board of Supervisors. They overturned a proposed increase a couple of years ago. The price of water is going to go up. I don't care who has it. The price of using your toilet is going to continue to go up. I don't care who has it. The price of trash is going to go up. I mean, Spring Valley Lake is serviced by Sheila Bath Rivera with advanced disposal. Her parents, Bob and Donna founded it. I mean, they were some of the hardest working people around. The price of trash is going to go on up. Street sweeping's not going to go down. The county, ironically, and I don't think this is going to bode well for the committee, the county, through the state, not through Supervisor Lovingood or any magic wand, through SB1 taxes that you and I have paid into the state, recently yielded the county and Spring Valley $12.4 million. Vince Bomarito, who's with Sully Miller and Vulcan Materials, his company got the contract. It's a 4-month contract to pave literally 95% of the roads. Now, that was not something that came under the CSA 64 powers. Under CSA 64, they're in charge of water and sewer and taking care of the storm drains and sweeping. So I've looked at the report. Rory and I agree to disagree. I've made a comment once or twice at some Spring Valley Lake Board of Directors meetings when I was talking about the survey. And I know that some people took it seriously. I think there's too many conflicts. I think that you have too many people on the association board that are moving this. I did ask Steve Garcia a couple of weeks ago. I said, Steve, would those that are running for this agree so that they're showing full transparency? Okay, very similar, Terry. This is when we started the economic councils. People said back in 1990, oh, Brady's doing this because he wants to get the real estate deals. So I said at a board meeting, that's real easy to take care of. Everybody that's on this board can never do a real estate deal with this group. And all of a sudden people said, well, what's his benefit? Well, my benefit was if our organization did a deal, or you as a competitor did a deal, or Don Brown did a deal, or Jason Lamro did a deal, or John Connolly did a deal, the boats all rise. Okay, so at the end of the day, I have found nothing compelling to do this. But I said to Steve, with those people that are proponents of this, that are lobbying to possibly be a board of director, okay, because there's going to be a stipend of $1,000 a month, plus health and medical, which I do get at the college. Okay, I get a $240 a month stipend, but I didn't go run for the office. I was appointed to the office, and then I ran. I spent a lot of money to do it. Are they willing to sign an acknowledgement with the community that they don't receive any stipends, that they can't get a salary? Okay, the other thing that bothered me with the report is that they show 3 major job classifications. General manager would be $150,000 a year plus a 40% override. That's a lot of money. Okay, a water manager $100,000 a year, and a sewer manager $100,000 a year, plus 9 administrative people at $50,000 a year. Now the $100,000 a year deals come with a 40% override. And when I reached out to one of the committee members back in the latter part of June, and I said, why do you need all these administrative people? I said, the Bradco companies can't afford to pay their administrative staff $50,000 a year plus a 40% override. The person said to me, where did you get that information? I said, it's on the back page of your report. So, I think that while I thought it was a great idea back in 08 and 09, and I remember finding an email recently that Jim Carr said, oh, Joe, if people know that you're supporting a CSD, they're going to kind of wonder what your motivation is. And now all of a sudden, all those years later, I could be a person that is not necessarily opposing it, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And I'm going to go out to right now there's 5,394 registered voters. So the people that are watching this, and hopefully we'll send this interview down, and Lisa Verhagen and Dennis Verhagen will be nice enough to post it, and other people within Spring Valley Lake. If you are a renter and you're a registered voter, you get to vote. If you are an owner and you're not registered to vote, you don't get to vote. So there are 5,394 registered voters as of 5 months ago. We have recently requested the list to go through to see. And I really think that there needs to be not a rush to judgment. I think there needs to be some more really open dialogue. I don't think that they want to do it at the busiest election of all time, because I think that the outcome could be very negative. And Deb and I both deeply care about Spring Valley Lake. We wouldn't have given all the years that we did. I've had 4 boxes of information. We're down to 3. We've got a lot of friends now. We love them. But to create another level of government, just have another level of government. When the level of government that we have, Steve Samaras and his staff, Luther Stokes and his staff, Gary McBride as CEO, there's nothing wrong with what we're doing. And candidly, there's nowhere they can save money. I don't care what you tell people. They're not going to save money. So